The Philippines is negotiating a number of these kinds of deals, no? And what we are most afraid of is that developing countries, poor countries like the Philippines, lose its policy space, its ability to define its own development agenda. With this deal with the European Union, we feel that the corporate agenda will be the main driving force, and therefore it would undermine all the other development objectives in the Philippines to, secure food, to create jobs. So all of these will be subsumed under EU corporate agenda. The Philippines is still basically a poor country, and with poverty around 40%. No? So we're concerned about the effect on the most vulnerable sectors. We're talking about small farmers, we're talking about small fisher folks who don't have any subsidy support from our own government. It's not like the huge subsidies being given by Europe to its own small farmers. We're concerned about the effect of an aggressive push for market access on industrial products. We're concerned about the effect this would have on our own factories and the labor and the job losses that it would create. And we're concerned about the access of poor people to cheap medicines. And the pharmaceutical companies, most of them are European pharmaceutical companies, are already controlling the market in the Philippines. And and their quest for profits is becoming more and more important than access to cheap medicines for poor people. The EU is very aggressive in terms of financial services, and already in the Philippines we've liberalized the banking sector. And so we see that more and more European companies can go into the banking sector in the Philippines. Of course, it has implications again on poor people who, first of all, they don't have access to these kinds of credit. But more, the impact is really on the priorities of the government. So with the opening up of the financial services, the priorities, the development priorities would again shift away from, let's say, supporting real sectors like agriculture, like food production, like fishing, and more into these kinds of more portfolio investments, financial capital. So this is it's a choice, that's being made. And unfortunately, when it comes to these choices, for developing countries like the Philippines, the governments, because of all this liberalization of the financial sector, are choosing the virtual and the economy rather than the real economy. So it has very serious implications on the development direction. We're facing a barrage of these bilateral negotiations, and it's very difficult. Japan is pushing aggressively, China is pushing aggressively, and now another big power, the European Union, is pushing aggressively. So it's just too much, but we're finding our energy, and hopefully through solidarity from activists here in Europe and activists within the region, that we can, it renews our strength to continue this struggle against these unfair deals. We appreciate the work of World Development Movement in producing these researches and looking at the particular processes within the European Union. I think it's helpful for movements elsewhere, particularly in the South, who are poised to negotiate and conclude these unfair deals, to know that there's an ally on the other side. To know that while we continue our struggle at home, that there's a parallel struggle that's happening, and that struggle is to also inform the citizens in Europe. That basically this is not just about this deal. This is about how we want the world, a better world for all of us. That we feel that development should serve the interests of poor people everywhere. Especially those that have over the years been marginalized by development policy. So it's now time to take back, and say that we have the right to development, that we can pursue development at our own pace, that we define our own development objectives. The push for EU competitiveness should not be at the expense of jobs, of people's livelihoods, of our right to produce food. And I think that it's important that we look at this as one struggle rather than a disjointed struggle among different movements.